Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family, today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Chapter 1. Chaos and Order Collide. Haven Cove is a small coastal town nestled by the sea, where the waves crash steadily like a heartbeat, and the people live slowly, as if there's nowhere else to rush off to. The salty sea breeze blows through, and sunlight dances on the water, painting the passing days with brilliant golden hues. But for Jenny Hart, life is never slow. It's a whirlwind, and she's the eye of the storm. At 26, she's a freelance designer with messy brown hair that looks like it's just been tousled by the wind, green eyes that sparkle like the sea on a sunny day, and a smile that could melt ice, unless that ice happens to be a guy in a police uniform. In Haven Cove, people call her the walking disaster. No one's sure who came up with the nickname first, but everyone agrees it fits perfectly. Once she accidentally knocked down the coffee shop sign on the corner just by trying to tie a few balloons to it for its grand opening. The sign crashed, the balloons floated away, and she stood there with an awkward grin as the owner sighed. Another time, she spilled a bucket of green paint across the main street, turning it into her own abstract masterpiece, all in the name of beautifying the town. For a week afterward, people left green footprints everywhere, shaking their heads and retelling the story like a local legend. She even got grabbed by the police once, mistaken for a vandal. Turns out she was just fixing a crooked street lamp with a broom and some duct tape, her own warped version of civic duty. But Jenny doesn't mind. She lives in a small white-painted wooden house, its windows always flung wide open to let in the sea breeze, the inside brimming with vibrant paintings and scattered art supplies like a bird's nest after a wild night. To her, art is breath, laughter, a way to escape the loneliness her big city family left behind. They call her painting a cute little hobby, but Haven Cove is where she's free. Sure, that freedom often comes with exasperated looks from the neighbors, but she doesn't care. That day was a beautiful Saturday. Clear blue skies, golden sunlight, a gentle breeze rippling the waves. Jenny stood on the sidewalk, clutching a homemade banner scribbled with marker. "Happy third birthday, Shrimp." Shrimp was old lady Lucy's calico cat from next door, a VIP in Jenny's eyes. She'd promised Lucy she'd do something special for its birthday, and she wasn't about to back out. Glancing around, she zeroed in on a traffic signpost, an arrow pointing to the beach, weathered and slightly tilted. "Perfect," she muttered, picturing the banner fluttering in the wind, spreading joy across the town, or at least to Shrimp. No ladder, no help, no problem. She climbed the pole, one hand gripping the cold metal, the other holding the banner high, a roll of duct tape clenched in her teeth. She was confident she could pull it off. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Jason Cole cruised down the main street in his white patrol car, sharp eyes scanning everything. At 32, he was Haven Cove's new police chief, fresh from the big city after a decade of high-strung shifts. Tall, broad-shouldered, with neatly cropped black hair and gray eyes cold as a brewing storm, he was the embodiment of seriousness. His uniform was pristine, not a wrinkle in sight, and he always carried a small notebook for jotting down details. License plates, petty complaints, anything. For Jason, life was a set of unbreakable rules. He woke at 5 a.m., jogged along the beach, ate breakfast with an egg sandwich and black coffee. No sugar. Everything ran like clockwork. He didn't smile, didn't joke, and didn't let emotions interfere with his job. Maybe that's why he chose Haven Cove, a quiet place to keep things under control, far from the ghosts of his past. 8 years ago, his younger brother Ben died in a car accident, and Jason still blamed himself, carrying the pain like a weight he couldn't shed. Every mistake cut into a heart that had long stopped beating for joy. It was his 4th day on the job, and the townsfolk were already whispering, "Too serious. Never smiles. Probably a robot, not a person." Jason didn't care. He was here to work, not to make friends. Then he saw her, a petite girl dangling from the signpost like she was auditioning for the circus. One foot barely holding on, waving some piece of paper, duct tape in her mouth like it was normal. Jason frowned, pulled over, and gave a short blast of his siren. Jenny flinched, nearly losing her grip. She turned, spotting the patrol car and a tall guy stepping out, face like stone, uniform so neat she wondered if he ever sat down. She swallowed, clinging to the pole, but the banner slipped from her hand, smacking the patrol car's windshield with a soft thud. Jason stood still, watching the banner slide down, revealing the words, "Happy third birthday, Shrimp." His frown deepened as he stepped closer and looked up. "What are you doing up there?" His voice was low, steady, emotionless. Jenny gave an awkward smile, still hanging on. Just hanging a banner." "No big deal, officer." "Ma'am, get down now," he said, face unchanged. "That's public property. You can't hang that on it." He nodded toward the banner now on the ground. Jenny grimaced, climbing down slowly, legs shaky from the height. Once on solid ground, she brushed her hands on her jeans and stood straight, facing him. He towered over her, eyes like he was staring down a criminal. "Look," she said, holding up a finger. "This is a good deed. Shrimp's practically family around here. His birthday deserves a celebration." Jason didn't react. He pulled his notebook from his pocket, scribbled something in stiff handwriting, then looked up. "Name?" "Jenny Hart," she replied, crossing her arms. "And who are you to ask for it?" "Jason Cole, Haven Cove Police Chief," he said, voice flat. $50 fine for disturbing the peace." "What?" Jenny's jaw dropped. $50? For a cat's birthday? Are you kidding? Don't you have a heart?" Jason paused his pen, meeting her gaze for a second. "I have a heart," he said dryly. "It just doesn't beat for this." He tore off the ticket and handed it to her. "Pay within 7 days." Jenny snatched it, gaping as he turned back to his car, walking stiffly like a wooden soldier. "No heart," she muttered, crumpling the paper. "Total buzzkill." She bent to pick up the banner, unaware Jason glanced at her through his rearview mirror. Trouble, he thought. Cute trouble. He shook his head, started the engine, and drove off. Jenny swore she wouldn't forgive that rigid cop. Jason jotted her name in his notebook. Jenny Hart, keep an eye on. Then left. Haven Cove was peaceful, but with her chaos and his rules, things were about to turn upside down. The sea breeze hummed, pulling them closer, whether they liked it or not. Chapter 2. Conflict. After that fateful day with Shrimp's birthday banner, Jenny Hart and Jason Cole seemed to have declared a silent war on each other. To Jenny, Jason was the epitome of irritating rigidity, a cop who didn't know what fun was, while Jason mentally filed her under things to handle, right below check traffic lights, and above catch the kids stealing fish at the pier. But Haven Cove was a small town, and in a place where everyone knew each other by their dog's name or fishing habits, the two kept crashing into each other like opposite poles of a magnet, repelling yet unable to avoid each other forever. The first day after the banner incident, Jenny decided to forget about that cop. She had a commission to design posters for the town's summer festival, and she wanted to do something striking, maybe an outdoor mural so people would remember her for more than just paint spills. But as she stood outside the fire station's parking lot, testing an old hose to see if it worked, she needed water to mix paint. Jason drove by in his patrol car. Jenny, not paying attention, twisted the nozzle too hard. A jet of water shot out like fireworks, hitting Jason's windshield and forcing him to brake sharply. He stepped out, uniform soaked in a patch, water dripping from his cap onto his face. Jenny dropped the hose, raising both hands like she was surrendering. "This can be explained," she shouted, voice slightly panicked but still forcing a grin. Jason wiped the water from his face, glaring at her, with eyes that could have roasted her if they were lasers. "I don't want to hear excuses anymore, Miss Hart," he said, voice icy, pulling out his notebook to jot something down. "Another $50? Jenny asked, hands on hips. Jason didn't answer, just handed her a second ticket that week. "You should stay away from things that can cause trouble," he said, then returned to his car, leaving Jenny standing there, drenched and muttering, "Not fun at all." But as she turned away, she didn't see Jason glance at her through his rearview mirror, the corner of his mouth twitching like he might smile, before he stopped himself. A few days later, trouble found her again. The Haven Cove Library hosted a reading event for kids, and Jenny volunteered to decorate by stringing tiny lights around the bookshelves. She wasn't great with wiring but figured, what's the big deal? Plug it in and it'll light up. The result? She accidentally short-circuited the system, triggering the fire alarm. Its shrill wail sounded like a fire truck siren, sending kids scattering and the elderly librarian yelling for the police. Naturally, Jason showed up. He walked in to find Jenny amid a tangle of lights, holding a singed plug, face flushed red. "This can be explained," she blurted before he could even speak. "I don't want to hear excuses anymore, Miss Hart," Jason replied, almost a catchphrase by now. He silenced the alarm, checked the damage, then turned to her. "Do you know how dangerous this is?" "But no one got hurt," Jenny argued, shrugging. Jason sighed, and for the first time, she saw him skip the ticket, just shaking his head and telling her, "Don't mess with electricity again," before leaving. Jenny watched him go, thinking to herself, "At least he didn't find me this time." Progress. But the peak of chaos hit at the end of the week during the town's fishing festival at the Central Lake. Jenny decided to film a TikTok to promote the event. She borrowed the mayor's old bike, tied balloons to it, and planned to ride around the lake for artistic effect. All went well until she lost control, careened down a slope, and plunged into the lake, bike, balloons, and all, right in front of dozens of fishermen. The mayor's shout echoed as Jenny surfaced, hair plastered with duckweed, offering an awkward grin. "This can be explained." Jason, patrolling nearby, rushed over. He pulled her onto the shore, his shirt soaked from jumping in to keep her from falling again. "I don't want to hear excuses anymore, Miss Hart," he said, but his tone was different this time, less cold, like he was getting used to this kind of chaos. Jenny looked at him, water dripping from her hair onto her face, and laughed. "You're all wet now, Chief. Do I look like a mermaid?" Jason glared, but the corner of his eye twitched, the first time she'd seen him almost smile. "You look more like a mess," he replied, then turned away, leaving her standing there, wet but amused that he didn't find her this time. Despite their constant clashes, Jenny started noticing odd moments with Jason. One night at the town's only bar, as she laughed with friends, a drunk guy stumbled over, slurring and insisting she dance with him. Jenny refused, but he wouldn't leave. Just then Jason appeared. He didn't say much, just placed a hand on the guy's shoulder, his icy stare shutting him up and sending him staggering off. He turned to Jenny, checking if she was okay, his rare gentle look catching her off guard. "Thanks," she mumbled, at a loss for words for once. Jason nodded and left like it was nothing. But from then on, Jenny began to see he wasn't entirely the heartless guy she'd pegged him as. He was just good at hiding it. Jason, meanwhile, couldn't deny Jenny was doing something to his dull life. Haven Cove had been so peaceful it sometimes felt stifling, everything orderly, predictable, like him. But Jenny was different. She was color, noise, the vibrancy he hadn't realized he'd missed. Though she gave him headaches, real headaches, he was getting used to hearing her name from others. "Jenny's at it again. Miss Hart just fried the library lights. She dropped the mayor's bike in the lake." Each time he sighed, but deep down, he felt the town was less boring with her around. And then, like a comical curse, Jason started catching Jenny's bad luck. One afternoon, while patrolling near her house, he heard a yell from her backyard. Rushing over, he found her setting a mousetrap to catch a squirrel stealing garden seeds, but he stepped right into it. The metal snapped onto his boot, and he toppled onto the grass as Jenny shouted, "This can be explained." Jason growled, prying it off, glaring at her. "I don't want to hear excuses anymore, Miss Hart." But as he stood, she ran over, anxiously checking his foot, and for the first time he saw her genuinely flustered. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" she asked, eyes wide. Jason sighed, shaking his head. "I'm fine, but you should put warnings on these traps." He limped back to his car, hiding a tiny smile as she called after him. "I'll totally do that next time." Another time when Jason stopped by Lucy's to check a noise complaint, Shrimp, the cat Jenny adored, leaped from the roof onto his shoulder, clawing a long scratch down his arm before darting off. Jenny appeared moments later, scooping up the cat and bursting into laughter as Jason rubbed his arm, scowling. "This can be explained," she said, stifling giggles. "I don't want to hear excuses anymore, Miss Hart," he replied. But his tone had softened, like he knew arguing with her was pointless. She handed him a bandage, and when their hands brushed, they both hesitated for a second before turning away. The clincher came at the town's cooking festival. Jenny, who could barely cook instant noodles, signed up anyway because it's fun. Jason, planning to just observe, got dragged in by her when they were short a person. "You're the chief, you have to join," she pleaded, shoving an apron into his hands. The result? Jason burned a pan of eggs. Jenny spilled flour everywhere, and their special pancakes looked like charred mud. The crowd roared with laughter, and the mayor clapped Jason on the shoulder. "She's rubbing off on you." Jason shot Jenny a look, but she just shrugged, grinning. "This can be explained." This time, he didn't say anything, just shook his head, the corner of his mouth curling into a real smile. Small, but enough for Jenny to notice. As days passed, amid bickering and laughter, something crept into both of them. Jenny started seeing Jason as more than a stiff cop. He had a quiet way of caring, like when he stepped in to protect her or reluctantly joined her crazy antics. Jason, though he wouldn't admit it, saw Jenny as a strange breeze, always annoying him, but reminding him life wasn't just rules. They still clashed, still argued, but the fleeting moments between them began to shine, like sunlight peeking through after rain. Chapter 3. Emotional Shift. After a series of laughable yet exasperating collisions, Jenny Hart and Jason Cole had become an undeniable part of each other's lives, though they spent most of their time bickering or cleaning up the messes from Jenny's harebrained ideas. To Jenny, Jason was the rigid cop who constantly annoyed her with tickets and cold headshakes, but she couldn't deny he had a strange pull she wasn't ready to name. For Jason, Jenny was a tiny tornado, always giving him headaches, but also leaving him puzzled by the times he caught himself smiling when he thought of her. They were like parallel lines never meant to meet until Haven Cove, with its steady waves and whispering sea breeze, drew them together despite all resistance. Then one rainy day changed everything, turning their comedic clashes into an emotional thread neither expected, stirring their hearts with new rhythms. It all began on a Wednesday afternoon when Haven Cove's sky shifted from clear blue to a heavy gray, thick clouds signaling an impending downpour. Jenny was working at the local fire station, not to fight fires, of course, but to paint a mural to spruce up the building's facade. She'd begged the firefighters for a week, arguing that a vibrant mural would make the place friendlier, and after several promises and a vow not to spill paint like last time, they reluctantly agreed. Inside, Jenny was thrilled. She wanted to prove she wasn't just the walking disaster, but could leave a real mark on this town. She rigged a makeshift scaffold from old wooden planks and a ladder borrowed from Lucy's garage, then climbed up with paint cans and brushes in hand. Wearing an old t-shirt, torn jeans, and her hair tied high, she hummed a tune from the radio, her mood as light as the morning sea breeze. She was painting a blazing fire, a slightly ironic choice for a fire station, but Jenny loved the boldness when the scaffold started to wobble. It's fine, she told herself, trying to balance, clinging to her usual optimism. But then a rotten plank snapped in two with a sharp crack. Jenny screamed, flailing for something to grab, but she and the paint can tumbled to the ground. She landed on her left foot, hearing a smaller crack, and a jolt of pain shot from her ankle to her knee like lightning. "Oh no," she groaned, clutching her leg. Red paint splattered across her like she'd stepped out of a horror movie. In that moment, her usual confidence vanished, replaced by a mix of fear and shame. "Here we go again," she thought. "I've messed it all up." Right then the rain hit, big, heavy drops falling as if someone upstairs had turned on a faucet. Jenny tried dragging herself to the wall for shelter, but her foot wouldn't cooperate, every movement a bone-deep ache. Rain streamed into her eyes, blurring her vision, and she looked up thinking, "This is bad. No one's around to help me now." She felt small, helpless, a rare sensation she usually masked with smiles and jokes. But she was wrong. Jason Cole, patrolling a few blocks away, heard her scream through the downpour. He floored the gas, his heart beating faster than usual, a sudden worry surging that he didn't pause to analyze. When he arrived, chaos greeted him. A broken scaffold, red paint smeared everywhere, and Jenny huddled in the rain, face twisted in pain. Without a word, Jason leapt from the car and ran to her, rain soaking through his uniform, but he didn't care. "Miss Hart, are you okay?" he asked, voice urgent, a rare shift from his usual cool tone. Inside, a familiar fear bubbled up, the fear of losing someone, like he'd lost Ben. He didn't want to admit it, but seeing Jenny there, vulnerable and hurting, panicked him in a way he hadn't felt in years. Jenny looked up, wet hair plastered to her face, forcing a weak smile. "This can be explained," she said, but her voice was faint, lacking its usual bravado. Jason shook his head, for once not responding to her catchphrase with irritation. He knelt, one hand supporting her back, the other slipping under her knees, and lifted her as if she weighed nothing. "Don't argue," he said when she started to protest, his tone firm yet gentle. "You need a hospital." Rain poured, drenching Jason's uniform, but he didn't flinch. He strode quickly down the empty street, water splashing underfoot, holding Jenny close to shield her from the cold. Jenny, despite the pain, felt his warmth through the wet fabric, a sudden sense of safety easing her fear. She wrapped her arms around his neck, clinging tighter for balance, her head resting on his shoulder, and in that moment, her helplessness faded. She didn't feel like a failed disaster anymore. She felt protected, cared for, something she rarely dared hope for, even from herself. Amid the freezing rain, that moment turned still, as if the world held just the two of them. For Jason, Jenny's embrace did something he couldn't explain right then. As she leaned into him, his heartbeat shifted, no longer racing from fear, duty, or the painful memories of Ben he'd carried for 8 years. It beat steady, strong, and for the first time in ages, he realized it wasn't beating for obligation or grief. It was beating for her. She hugged him in the rain, and his heart finally found its rhythm. A wall inside him crumbled. He no longer saw Jenny as just a troublemaker to manage, but someone he wanted to protect, not because he had to, but because he chose to. The fear of losing her wasn't a burden anymore. It became a reason to step forward. When they reached the car, Jason set Jenny in the passenger seat, wrapping her in a blanket from the trunk before driving straight to the town's small clinic. He stood in the corner, arms crossed, quietly watching as the doctor bandaged her ankle. But his mind was a storm. He wasn't used to this. Worry, relief, and a warmth he didn't dare name. Jenny glanced at him, offering a faint smile. "Thanks, Chief. You're a real hero this time." Jason nodded, face still stern, but his eyes softer than usual, like he was wrestling with himself to not show too much. "You need to be more careful," he said, then added, "But it's nothing." Jenny raised an eyebrow, sensing a subtle shift in him, but she didn't press. She knew he needed time. That evening, Jason drove Jenny home after her discharge. The rain had eased to a drizzle. He helped her inside, settling her on the sofa, then silently fetched water and an ice pack from the kitchen. As if he knew the place, though it was his first time there. Jenny watched, for once unsure how to tease him. She always used humor to mask her feelings, but now she just wanted to feel his presence. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice soft, missing its usual mischief. "I don't want you doing anything stupider tonight," Jason replied, handing her the ice pack, a hint of warmth in his tone he didn't notice. They sat in silence for a while, only the patter of rain outside breaking it, but it wasn't heavy. It was a new, fragile connection, real and quiet. Then Jenny broke the stillness, her voice small but curious. "Why are you always so serious, Jason? I mean, don't you get tired?" Jason looked at her, caught off guard by her using his name instead of Chief, a tiny detail that made him feel closer. He sighed, sitting across from her, and for the first time, he let himself open up. "I didn't have a choice," he said, voice low, eyes on his hands as if sifting through memories. "I had a younger brother, Ben. He died in a car accident 8 years ago. I should have been there, but I wasn't in time. Since then, I don't want to make mistakes, or let anyone get hurt because of me." Saying it, he felt lighter, as if part of the weight he'd carried so long lifted. Jenny stayed quiet, No quips springing out for once. She saw the pain in his eyes and understood why he kept everything in check. Her heart softened. She no longer saw him as a dry cop, but someone scarred like her, just hiding it differently. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice small, genuine. "I didn't know." Jason nodded, meeting her gaze. "It's fine. I don't talk about it much." She tilted her head, pressing on. "So why'd you become a cop?" "To protect people," he answered, voice firm. "Like I couldn't with Ben." She gave a sad smile, one that didn't hide her feelings. "You're doing a good job. Like today with me." Jason didn't reply, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a small sign her words reached him. Then she continued, her tone lighter, as if shedding her own shell. "I'm not always cheerful either. I joke and do dumb stuff because I don't want to think about how my family doesn't support me. They say painting's pointless, that I should get a real job. I came here to prove them wrong, but sometimes I feel so alone." Saying it, she felt unburdened. For once, she didn't need to laugh it off. Jason looked at her, seeing the fragility behind her bright smile for the first time, and realized she wasn't just a chaotic whirlwind. She was someone worth cherishing. "You're not pointless," he said, voice steady, no hesitation. "You make people here laugh, brighten this town. That's not nothing." Jenny blinked, surprised by his words, a warmth spreading through her. "Thanks," she whispered, eyes glistening. They sat there sharing pieces of themselves, and for the first time no wall stood between them. Just understanding, quiet but deep. From that day something shifted in both. For Jason, that hug in the rain woke him up. He didn't just want to keep things in control anymore. He wanted to live, to feel. He stopped by Jenny's more often, sometimes with food from the diner, sometimes just to check she was resting as the doctor ordered. And each time he felt less alone. One night he brought pizza and they ate on the sofa, watching an old comedy Jenny picked. She laughed until she cried, while Jason just sat there. But his eyes were brighter, like he was savoring it, no longer distancing himself from joy. For Jenny, that embrace was an anchor. She didn't feel she always had to be strong or cheerful to hide her sadness. Jason gave her a stability she didn't know she needed, and she began to value him not just as the guy who nagged her, but as someone who truly cared. They talked late, sometimes over the phone when he worked nights, about everything, from petty town cases to her latest paintings, each chat a step closer. One weekend, when her ankle improved, Jason asked her to walk along the beach. The sun set in a fiery red, waves lapping gently at the shore. Jenny went barefoot, skipping on the sand, while Jason walked slowly beside her, hands in pockets. "See, walking's fun too," she said, tugging his arm. He let her pull him, not resisting, and for the first time she saw him smile fully, soft but enough to make her heart race. She realized she didn't just want to tease him. She wanted to be with him, longer. Jenny decided to teach Jason to paint, despite his claim he was worse than a kid. They sat in her yard, her handing him a brush and guiding him to paint waves. He clumsily smeared paint on his hands and Jenny laughed until tears fell. "You're awful," she teased, but patiently showed him how to hold the brush. And inside she felt glad he'd try, for her. In return, Jason taught her basic self-defense, though she dropped the stick he gave her and nearly hit his foot. "You're the worst student I've ever had," he said, but his voice was warm, not cold like before, and he found he liked her clumsiness more than he'd thought. They became each other's support. No explicit words needed. Jenny found stability in Jason's presence, a place to let go without hiding. Jason found joy in her chaos, a vitality he'd forgotten. Evenings together, walks, painting, and self-defense sessions, all built a bond they didn't rush to name, but knew mattered. Under Haven Cove's sky, amid waves and breeze, they healed each other, bit by bit, and their hearts, one beating for her, one for him, found a shared rhythm. Chapter 4. Misunderstanding and Rift. In the days following the rainy accident, Jenny Hart and Jason Cole had found a new rhythm in their relationship, a strange balance between her chaos and his order. They didn't call it love, neither spoke the big words, but it was there, In the dinners they shared, the beach walks, and the times Jenny burst out laughing when Jason smeared paint on his face. Haven Cove, with its steady waves and gentle sea breeze, seemed to root for them, keeping them close. But even in the calmest days, a storm could brew, and this time, it arrived as a misunderstanding neither saw coming. It started on a Friday morning when Jenny's ankle was nearly healed. She sat in her yard, painting a new piece, a sunset seascape with a man's silhouette gazing at the waves, when a sleek car pulled up to her gate. Jake Miller stepped out, tall with artfully tousled blonde hair, wearing a leather jacket and sunglasses like he'd walked off a music video set. Jake was an old friend from high school, now a semi-famous indie musician in the big city. He'd come back to Haven Cove to visit family, but also to see her. "Jenny Hart," Jake called out, grinning wide when he spotted her. Jenny looked up, surprised, then ran to hug him. "Jake, oh my gosh, it's been forever." They laughed, catching up on old times. The days they'd graffitied school walls and got punished. The times they'd skipped class to listen to music on the beach. Jake was different now, confident and successful, but he still looked at Jenny with the warm eyes of an old friend. "Still here causing trouble, huh?" he teased, glancing at the paint scattered around her. Jenny shrugged, smiling. "You know me. Can't change that." They sat on the porch steps, chatting for a while, until Jake said what he'd been holding on to since deciding to stop by. "Listen, Jenny," he began, his tone more serious. "I'm working on a big project, a tour with visual art tie-ins. I need a designer like you. Why not come to the city with me? You could go pro, sell your paintings, build a name. Haven Cove's sweet, but it's too small for your talent." Jenny blinked, caught off guard. Wow, Jake, I don't know what to say." She gave an awkward laugh, brushing hair behind her ear. "I mean, I love this place, but let me think about it, okay?" Jake nodded, patting her shoulder. "No rush. I'm here a few days. Mull it over. But I mean it, Jenny. You deserve more than this town." He stood, promising to swing by again, then drove off, leaving Jenny sitting there, her mind spinning with the idea of leaving Haven Cove. Just then, Jason cruised by in his patrol car. He'd planned to drop off a box of donuts for Jenny, a little habit he'd started the week before, but froze when he saw her with some stranger. He didn't catch the whole conversation, only the tail end. "Why not come to the city with me? And you deserve more than this town." Jason's grip tightened on the steering wheel, a chill running down his spine. He didn't get out, didn't ask questions, just drove off silently, the donuts sitting untouched on the passenger seat. His mind churned. Jenny was leaving. No goodbye. Like the past weeks meant nothing to her. The past flooded back. Jason thought of Ben, his brother, gone forever without warning. He'd vowed never to let someone important slip away like that again, but now it felt like history repeating. He didn't ask Jenny, didn't confront her. He feared her answer would confirm his dread. Instead, he did what he always did, pulled back, locked his emotions down, and reverted to the cold man he'd been when he first arrived in Haven Cove. The next day, Jenny noticed the shift. Jason didn't stop by as usual, didn't call, didn't text. She tried calling him, but he brushed her off with a curt, "I'm busy." When she ran into him at the grocery store, he nodded hello and turned away, avoiding her eyes. A hollow ache grew in Jenny's chest. She didn't understand what was happening, but his coldness hurt more than she'd expected. "Is he tired of me?" she wondered, recalling all the times she dragged him into messes. "Or did he never take me seriously?" She tried reaching out. One afternoon, still limping slightly from her healing ankle, she brought a box of homemade cookies to the police station, a clumsy peace offering, though she didn't know what she'd done wrong. Jason was at his desk, buried in paperwork. She knocked, forcing a smile. "Hey, Chief, I made these. No fires, I swear." Jason looked up, but his eyes were distant. "Thanks," he said flatly, "but I'm busy. Just leave them." Jenny blinked, hurt flashing across her face. "Jason, what's wrong? Did I do something?" He didn't meet her gaze, just shook his head. "Nothing. I just need to focus on work." She set the cookies down, turned away, tears welling but held back. The coldness stretched through the week. Jenny grew somber, her constant smile fading. She stopped painting, stopped joking, just sat at home staring at the sea, wondering if Jason had ever truly cared. Jake stopped by again, asking if she'd decided. She shook her head, saying, "I don't know yet, Jake. I need time." But deep down, she knew her hesitation wasn't about Haven Cove. It was about Jason. She didn't want to leave if he was here, but his distance made her doubt everything. The breaking point came on a Saturday night during the town's outdoor movie screening at the park. Jenny went, hoping to catch Jason and clear the air. She spotted him in a far corner, in uniform, watching the crowd as always. Taking a deep breath, she approached. "Jason, we need to talk," she said, voice trembling. He turned, face blank. "About what?" "About you. About us. Why are you avoiding me?" Jason's fists clenched, his eyes darkening. "I'm not avoiding you. I just figured you're busy with your plans." Jenny frowned. "What plans?" "Leaving," he said, voice icy. "Going to the city with your friend. I heard it." Jenny froze, then it clicked. "You mean Jake? You think I'd just go without saying anything?" Jason didn't answer, looking away. His silence cut like a knife. Tears spilled down Jenny's cheeks. "You always think I'm a joke, don't you?" she cried, voice breaking. "I thought we had something, Jason. I thought you trusted me, but you never took me seriously. I can hurt too, you know." Jason turned back, seeing her cry, and for the first time he wavered. "Jenny, he started, but she cut him off. "Don't. If you don't trust me, there's nothing left to say." She spun around, running from the park, leaving Jason standing there, his chest heavy. He didn't follow. He stood still, her sobs blending with the wind. A wave of loss crashing over him. He'd been wrong. He knew it. But his fear of losing her had pushed her further away. Jenny got home, locked the door, and curled up on the sofa, crying until she was spent. She'd opened up to him, but now she just felt foolish. Jason returned to the station, sitting in the dark, clutching the first ticket he'd ever given her, wondering if he still had a chance to fix this. Chapter 5. Touching Moments in Healing. After the big fight in the park, Haven Cove seemed quieter than ever, but only on the surface. For Jenny Hart, the days that followed drifted by in a haze of sadness. She stopped painting, stopped joking, just sat in her little wooden house, staring out at the sea through the window, clutching a cold cup of tea. She'd thought Jason understood her, saw the real her beneath her playful exterior, but his coldness and doubt had punched a hole in her heart. Meanwhile, Jason Cole returned to his rigid routine, patrolling, note-taking, working, but every step felt heavy, as if he carried an invisible boulder. He knew he'd messed up, but his fear of losing her had led him to destroy the most precious thing he'd ever had. The first day after the incident, Jason tried to focus on work. He sat in the police station, papers piled high, but his eyes kept drifting to the first ticket he'd ever given Jenny, the day she hung that banner for shrimp. He'd kept it in his desk drawer, unsure why he hadn't thrown it out. The image of her crying under the park's lights haunted him, her voice breaking. "You always think I'm a joke, don't you? I can hurt too." He clenched his fists, wondering if he still had a chance to fix things or if he'd let her slip away forever like Ben. Jenny, meanwhile, tried to keep busy. Jake Miller stopped by again, asking if she'd decided on his offer to move to the city. She looked at him, managing a faint smile. "I'm not going anywhere, Jake," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Haven Cove is my home. I belong here." Jake raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Really, for this little town? Or for someone here?" Jenny didn't answer, just shook her head, and Jake knew not to push. He hugged her goodbye, wished her luck, and left, leaving her with her thoughts. She didn't say it, but deep down she knew the real reason was Jason. Even after he'd hurt her, she couldn't bear to leave him behind. Word of Jenny's decision spread fast in the small town. Lucy, her neighbor, told Tom, Jason's high school buddy, who now fixed cars in Haven Cove. Tom and Jason often met at the bar on weekends, sipping beers and chatting, mostly Tom talking, Jason listening. That night, Tom sat across from Jason, took a swig of beer, and casually dropped, "So what's up with you and Jenny Hart? I heard she turned down a big shot in the city." Jason froze, his beer halfway to his mouth. She turned it down, he asked, voice rough. Tom nodded, shrugging. Yeah, Jake Miller, that musician guy, wanted her to design for his tour. But she said no, said Haven Cove's home. Lucy says Jenny's been down lately, but she's not going anywhere. You got something to do with that? Jason went silent, his mind reeling. He'd assumed Jenny would leave, that she didn't need him or this town, but she stayed. And why? He set his beer down and stood. I've got to go, he said, no explanation. Tom smirked, calling after him. Go fix it, you idiot. Jason didn't look back, but a tiny spark of hope flickered inside him. He drove home but didn't go inside. Instead, he headed to the garage, to an old box where he'd stashed Jenny's sketchbook, the one she dropped when he drove her home after the accident. He'd picked it up, meaning to return it, but kept it because he didn't know how to face her. Now he opened it, hands trembling. The pages burst with color, oceans, waves, messy doodles of shrimp in the town. Then he saw them, sketches of him. Him by his patrol car, him on the beach, him with a paintbrush, scowling as she taught him to paint. On the last page, a drawing of him gazing at the sea, with her handwriting below. He makes me want to stay. Jason snapped the sketchbook shut, heart pounding. She didn't leave because of him, and he'd pushed her away out of his own fear. He stood, no more hesitation. Outside, dark clouds rolled in, the wind picked up, and rain began to fall. Big, heavy drops, like the day he'd carried her through the empty street. He didn't grab an umbrella or jacket, just took the sketchbook and ran to his car. Then he changed his mind. He needed to do this right. He ran through town on foot, rain soaking his shirt, hair sticking to his forehead, but he didn't stop. Along the way, he detoured to a small field near the beach, hastily picking a handful of wildflowers, tiny purple ones Jenny had pointed out on a walk, saying she loved them because they grow free, no one tending them. When he reached Jenny's door, he was drenched head to toe, water dripping onto the porch. He knocked, breathing hard, clutching the flowers and sketchbook. Jenny opened the door, startled to see him. She wore an oversized sweater, hair loosely tied, eyes still red from days of crying. Jason, she asked, voice hoarse, what are you doing here? Jason looked at her, unsure where to start. He took a deep breath and spoke, voice shaky from cold and emotion. I don't know when my heart stopped racing. Because of the past, because of Ben, because of everything I couldn't control. But that day you hugged me in the rain. It started beating for you, Jenny, and I was an idiot not to see it sooner. Jenny blinked, tears welling again, but this time not from pain. You mean that? She asked, voice choking. Jason nodded, handing her the sketchbook. I found this. I read what you wrote. He makes me want to stay. I was wrong to think you'd leave, wrong not to ask, wrong not to trust you. I'm sorry, Jenny. I don't want to lose you. He held up the wildflowers, rain dripping down his hand. I'm not good at this stuff, but stay with me, okay? Jenny stared at him, then at the flowers, and laughed through her tears, a sound of joy and disbelief. You're such an idiot, Jason Cole, she said, voice trembling. She stepped out, ignoring the rain, and threw her arms around him. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight, her warmth cutting through his soaked, cold shirt. This time, the hug wasn't just for balance or shelter. It was forgiveness, a promise, everything they'd never said out loud. They stood there in the rain, saying nothing more, just holding each other like they feared letting go would mean losing each other again. The downpour raged, but they didn't feel the cold, only the warmth of hearts beating in sync. Finally, Jenny looked up, grinning. You're soaked, Chief. Come inside, I'll make coffee. Jason smiled, a real unguarded smile, and nodded. Fine, just don't burn the kitchen down. She playfully punched his shoulder, and they stepped inside, leaving the rain behind. From there, they started over. Not rushed, not perfect, but real. Jenny opened a small cafe art studio on Main Street, where she hung her paintings and served coffee to the townsfolk. Jason became a regular, often sitting in the corner with a black coffee, no sugar, sometimes doodling with a brush. Still terrible, but he didn't mind her laughing at him. The town kids started calling him the Fun Chief, a title he never imagined he'd wear. Jenny still caused chaos, spilling coffee on customers, burning pastries in the oven, but Jason didn't snap anymore. He'd just shake his head, smile faintly, and help her clean up. One evening, as they sat on the beach watching the sunset, Jenny leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know," she said, "I'm still a walking disaster." Jason turned, kissing her forehead lightly. "Yeah, but I wouldn't want this life any other way now." Haven Cove remained peaceful, waves still crashing, breeze still blowing. But for Jenny and Jason, this town was now home, where they healed each other, found each other, and where their hearts beat steady, no longer from fear or grief, but from love. Chapter 6. Healing and Future. After that hug in the rain, Jenny Hart and Jason Cole didn't rush to label what they had. They didn't need grand words or lofty promises, just each other's presence, day by day, in the small moments Haven Cove offered. That rain had washed away misunderstandings and hurts, leaving a clean slate for them to start anew. From there, they built a future together, not perfect, but real, warm, and filled with laughter. For Jenny, it wasn't just a journey of healing with Jason. It was a chance to prove her passion for painting wasn't a mistake. The following spring, Jenny decided to turn her little wooden house into something bigger, a home and a creative space combined, a cafe art studio. She'd dreamed of it for ages, a place to paint, sell designs, and bring color to the town. With help from friends and her modest savings, she rented a small storefront on Main Street near the beach. She painted the walls a soft sea blue, hung her artwork, scenes of crashing waves, vibrant sunsets, and even a few sketches of Jason she no longer hid. She named it Shrimp's Corner, after Lucy's calico cat, her first muse, a silly name that made her giggle every time she thought of it. But deep down, Jenny knew this wasn't just a personal project. It was her way of proving to her parents, who'd always deemed painting useless, that she could succeed on her own terms. The cafe opened on a sunny day, with balloons, free pastries, and music blaring from Jenny's old Bluetooth speaker. Haven Cove locals flocked in, curious to see what the walking disaster would do with the place. Jenny stood behind the counter, clumsily brewing coffee, spilling milk a few times, but her radiant smile kept complaints at bay. Jason showed up, out of uniform in a simple shirt, holding a small bunch of purple wildflowers, the same kind he'd brought to apologize in the rain. "Congrats," he said, setting them on the counter. Jenny winked, teasing, "Not scared I'll burn it down?" Jason shook his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. "If it burns, I'll put it out. I'm a cop, remember?" She laughed loudly, and from that day he became a regular at Shrimp's Corner, witnessing her journey from its first steps. But Shrimp's Corner didn't stay just a little cafe. Jenny started sending her paintings to galleries in nearby cities, a bold move she'd once hesitated over, fearing rejection. She painted tirelessly, Haven Cove sees its people, her moments with Jason. Her talent soon caught attention. One day, an art collector visiting town spotted a painting in the cafe, a sunset with Jason's silhouette by the waves, and offered to buy it for more than she'd ever imagined. From there, Jenny's name spread. Her works began appearing at major art auctions, fetching thousands of dollars, sums she'd never dreamed of from brushstrokes her parents once called child's play. That money wasn't just numbers. It was proof she'd been right to believe in her art. Jenny used it to upgrade Shrimp's Corner, making it bigger, brighter. She improved the decor, added tables, and turned a corner into a free art studio for kids and anyone who loved painting. She wanted to give back to Haven Cove what it had given her, a place to belong, to create. Each week she stood amid giggling children, teaching them to hold brushes, mix colors, laughing as they smeared paint on each other's faces. Older folks, who'd once thought painting was kid stuff, tried it too, leaving with smiles and clumsy, proud artworks. Shrimp's Corner became more than a cafe. It turned into the town's artistic heart, a legacy Jenny built from her passion. Jason changed in ways he hadn't expected. He remained police chief, still serious about his job, but locals started calling him the friendly cop. Town kids adored him. On patrols, they'd chase after him, asking, "How many thieves have you caught?" Or, "Is your gun real?" He no longer glared at them like before, answering patiently, sometimes letting them sit in his patrol car. Jenny teased him. From heartless to kitty superhero, progress. Jason just shrugged, but his eyes lit up when she said it. He watched her with pride, not just from love, but because she'd turned past mockery into dazzling success. He'd stop by Shrimp's Corner after work, settling into his usual corner by the window with a black coffee, no sugar. But now he didn't just sit and watch. He'd pick up a brush, doodling on paper Jenny left out. He was still awful, lines wobbly like a child's, but he didn't mind. Jenny would ditch the counter, leaving it to staff to poke fun at him. Looks more like mud than waves, she'd say, giggling. Jason would glare, then shake his head and laugh too. You're a lousy teacher, he'd retort, and she'd punch his shoulder lightly, their laughter ringing out like no one else was there. Those moments proved they'd found balance, her chaos and his calm blending into one. Jenny's success stretched beyond Haven Cove. One day her parents, who'd urged her to ditch painting for a real job, called from the city. They'd heard about her art from a friend, about the auctions, in Shrimp's Corner from a small article. Jenny, her mom said, voice hesitant, I didn't think you'd pull this off. We were wrong not to believe in you. Her dad, rarely one to apologize, added, You've proven it, Jenny. We're proud of you. Jenny sat still, gripping the phone, tears streaming down her cheeks. She hadn't needed their words to feel validated, but hearing them was a release, like a final door in her heart swinging open. Their days flowed in simple, joyful routine, the distance between them gone. Jenny still stirred trouble, spilling coffee on customers, burning pastries, even dropping the cafe's new sign while tying balloons to it yet again. But Jason didn't snap. He'd show up with a toolbox, fix the sign, mop the floor, and just shake his head with a smile when she said, This can be explained. He'd grown used to her chaos, and oddly, he found it made his life fuller. A year passed since that rainy day. Haven Cove entered fall, golden leaves scattering the streets, the sea taking on a unique calm. Jason knew it was time for something he'd been planning. He wasn't good at romance, never the type to kneel in a crowd with red roses, but he wanted to do this their way, simple and true. He asked Tom to craft a small silver ring engraved with S and E inside. Nothing fancy, but meaningful. That night, he took Jenny for a beach walk, a habit they'd kept. The full moon glowed, waves lapped gently, and a cool early-season breeze blew. Jenny went barefoot, skipping on the sand as usual, while Jason walked beside her, hands in pockets, palms sweaty with nerves. You're acting weird tonight, Jenny said, tilting her head. Something to spill? Jason stopped, took a deep breath, and pulled her close. Jenny, he started, voice rough, I'm no good at this stuff, but since you came along, my life's not the same. You drive me crazy, make me laugh, make me want to live. Really live, not just get by. I don't want a day to pass without you. He pulled the ring from his pocket, holding it up in the moonlight. Marry me? Jenny blinked, mouth agape, then burst out laughing, a mix of shock and joy. Jason Cole, you idiot, she said, tears rolling down her face. Of course I will. She tackled him in a hug, nearly knocking him into the sand. He laughed loudly, wrapping his arms around her, sliding the ring onto her finger. They stood there, holding each other under the moon, the waves singing their own song. The wedding came a few months later, on a gentle spring day. It wasn't lavish, just a small beach ceremony with a few dozen friends and family, including Jenny's parents, who now looked at her with pride. Jenny wore a simple white dress, hair loose, clutching a bunch of purple wildflowers like the ones Jason had brought her. Jason stood tall in a navy suit, eyes locked on her through the whole thing. Lucy brought Shrimp, sporting a red bow, making everyone laugh. Tom, the best man, teased Jason. Your bachelor days are done. They exchanged vows, short, awkward, but heartfelt. And when he kissed her, the crowd cheered, Jenny whispering, You're stuck with me now, Chief. He grinned. Good. 2 years later, their little family grew. Their first, a girl, arrived in summer, with Jenny's green eyes and an odd seriousness like Jason's. They named her Lily. Jenny said, She's gentle like a flower, strong like a weed. Jason, a first-time dad, fumbled, dropping a bottle in her first week. But he never left her side, crooning off-key lullabies that had Jenny laughing until she ached. 2 years after, a boy came, Ben, named for Jason's brother. Little Ben had dark hair and Jenny's mischievous grin, crawling around, knocking things over, prompting Jenny to exclaim, "He's my mini-me!" Their life wasn't always smooth. Jenny still caused havoc, burning the kitchen trying to bake Lily's birthday cake, flooding the bathroom forgetting the tap for Ben's bath. Jason stayed serious, sometimes grumbling, but he didn't pull away. He fixed the kitchen, mopped the floor, hugged her from behind when she apologized with a mock guilty face. "You're the biggest disaster I've ever met," he'd say, voice warm, and she'd laugh, leaning into him. "But you love this disaster, right?" "Yeah," he'd reply, kissing her hair. Shrimp's Corner became their hub in the towns. With its free art corner, Lily and Ben splashed paint with Jenny, while Jason sat in his spot, improving. Simple drawings of their family, the sea, her. Haven Cove loved them. A quirky pair, one causing chaos, one fixing it, but no one could imagine the town without them. One evening, with Lily and Ben asleep, Jenny and Jason sat on their porch, gazing at the sea. She nestled into his shoulder, hands intertwined. "You know," she said, "I'm still a walking disaster." Jason turned, kissing her forehead, a gentle smile on his lips. "Yeah, but now I wouldn't want this life any other way." The sea breeze blew, waves rolled steady, and they sat in their little home, with the big love and success they'd built together. She still caused chaos, but now he wouldn't want life any other way. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Now, share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.